So excited today to be here with Dan Dodd, a Santa Rosa native who has been a top producing real estate professional since 2004, known for his reliability, persistence, and passion for Bay Area real estate. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
Beginning his career in Beverly Hills, Dan quickly established himself as a trusted expert, offering honesty, directness, and a deep understanding of the market. Before transitioning to real estate, Dan had a successful corporate career in sales and management, I remember that, excelling in high-pressure roles and ultimately becoming the director of retail sales for Sprint's Southern California market. His leadership transformed into the nation's top-performing region. With real estate in his blood, his father owned a Santa Rosa real estate company. Dan seamlessly leveraged his business acumen, problem-solving skills, and tireless work ethic to become a powerhouse agent. Beyond his professional achievements, Dan is deeply involved in community service as AIDS activist and has participated in the AIDS Life Cycle charity ride and serves on the board of National AIDS Memorial. He also supports several charitable organizations, including Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and the Special Olympics. Thank you so much for your service.
You make me sound so much more interesting than I feel.
I love that. Well, good. Well, you are interesting, and, like I say, full disclosure, we have known each other for a number of years, and I like to call you my dear friend.
I've learned a ton from you.
Oh, how sweet. Well, that's nice to know. I didn't know that.
Dan?
But I want to start with some questions, especially, about the corporate. It's such a different twist because starting from a corporate environment, and I remember you telling me the story. I can't remember how many people you used to have under your purview, but there were quite a few.
Several thousand, yes.
Thousands. I remember it was huge. And you were hugely successful. And I wonder how, that transition to real estate, how that helped you in your real estate career.
I think it's one of the major differentiation points for me is that by working in the corporate environment, particularly running a retail channel, you have to juggle multiple balls at any given time. Mm-hmm. And you're constantly faced with situations that you haven't seen before. Someone throws you something and you've got to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Listening skills, diffusing skills, they're really important in the corporate world, and that particularly in retail. And so that, coupled with my knowledge of sales and the background that I have in real estate with my father, really positioned me to be very different than any other realtor, and I was focused on what's my niche, right? Where can I carve out my piece of the pie when I started selling real estate? And it was really important for me to understand that. And the corporate world really allowed me to approach it from a very different perspective of a higher level of professionalism like I would the corporate world. So many people get into real estate and they don't work like they did for a company. They don't work for themselves. Right. They don't give themselves the same that they gave to a company. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was an ethic, a work ethic that I brought into real estate that really served me well in the beginning.
Yeah, it's about the structure, because in real estate, so many new people, there's very little structure. Unless the company tells you show up, you don't know what to do. Yeah. So you had a lot of that innate, structure already, knowing to get up, get dressed, go to work every day.
And the big thing is show up, right? Get dressed.
Show up
today.
Showing
get dressed.
Every day.
Show up.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have appointments. Yeah. I learned this from James Nunemacher. You get up and you dress and you show up. That's right. Mm-hmm. So it is interesting, though. I think it isn't just that there's little structure. I don't think there's any, really.
There isn't any.
You have to create
There's a little, because as a managing broker, I used to say, okay, you have a meeting once a week, you have your tour on Tuesday, you have your open houses. Right. You do have a little tiny bit, but the rest of the week you can be absent and no one would know, because you're not punching a clock, no one's paying you to be there, except you. And you've always been, all the years we worked together, you would get up, you put on your suit, and you came to work. Every day you were in the office working with your team. Well, now I want to talk to you about teams too and building teams, because you've always had an assistant, as far as I can recall. Is that correct?
Yeah, since my first year.
Yeah.
And since before I really could afford one.
Yeah, and I read also that you were a top producer in your second year.
Yeah.
And that's really amazing. It's quite a feat because it's very difficult. So probably you were in those, maybe, I don't know, in 2000 and whenever, 4, if they had the Rookie of the Year, but you probably made that too, or you should have.
They didn't have
They
one.
didn't
but
have it yet.
I don't
Right.
know. If,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you attribute becoming a top producer so quickly? What is that little secret, you think?
Well, we just talked about it. You got to show up.
Showing up. Yeah.
You have to show up.
People don't believe it, so it's good to reiterate, because that
Yeah.
is like such a huge part of it.
It's huge, and it's harder and harder in our world today because so much has become virtual. So much has become, walking into this beautiful office today and not seeing a hustle of people all the time like we used to see in offices. You sometimes have to go out and seek it.
Yeah.
So you have to go out and look for networking groups and other things, because it's about hearing the business of real estate happening.
Right.
It's about just having a conversation with someone who's in a deal, faced with a real situation and a real potential problem, and how they're solving it, and even talking about it with people. That's the thing that's missing, I think, in a lot of today's real estate environment. And it makes it very difficult for a newer agent coming in to really figure out how to chart their way. So for me, that was, in the beginning, it was about showing up, but it also was recognizing that I was creating a business. And I think a lot of people get into real estate, they think, oh, there's this big commission check at the end of this first sale.
Right.
And they don't think about it as a business, that you're really growing a business, and it's your business.
This is true, and that's back to the corporate structure. You couldn't go to work and not, one, show up, but you also wouldn't get paid, or you wouldn't have a job very long if you didn't perform and treat the business like a business.
That's right.
And you've always been great at that. So tell me, how do you stay motivated when you are working as an independent agent? Yeah, what motivates you?
I seek it out myself. I do a lot of motivational stuff. I attend seminars where they're available on topics that are motivational, things that really resonate with me. I try and synergize with people that are on the more positive side, that, you can always look at something as half full or half empty. And if you hang with the people that are looking at things half empty, then you tend to start looking at things half empty.
Right.
So I really try to be conscious of who I'm surrounding myself with.
Nice.
But the other piece of it for me is what I tell myself. It's the internal dialogue. People, if you were to ask virtually anybody that knows me in the real estate industry what I would say, if you ask me how I'm doing, they're going to tell you I'm living the dream, because that's what I'm known for saying. And sometimes I make a joke about it and I say it sarcastically, but the reality is that this is a dream.
Yeah.
What we do for a living is a dream.
I agree.
My worst day in real estate is better than my best day in most other people's lives.
Yeah.
So we're so fortunate. And if we can just come from that place,
Yeah.
and it's really hard.
To remember.
Especially today.
When a deal falls apart, or
Things happen.
when everything goes sideways.
It's
Today meaning the gloomy weather, or
just the gloomy weather
and the atmosphere
stresses of today.
Yeah, the politics,
you're being thrown all these different things at any given moment. You've got Instagram, you've got media throwing things at you. It's coming at you from every direction. And so how you work for yourself to keep your mind positive, no one's going to do it for you.
Right.
So that is the key. And
Did I read somewhere that you're into meditation, that you set yourself down and you make sure that you clear your mind? How do you tell us about that?
I've been meditating off and on. I've been meditating for 20 years, but pretty consistently meditating for about the last 5. And I do meditation. Usually meditation for me is anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. And I miss days. I mean, but if I miss 3 or 4 days in a row, I start to feel crunchy around the edges, if you will. I'm not quite as positive. So what I do every morning, I have a morning routine now. I don't watch the news at all. And I get up and I read something inspirational, positive, something motivational, or something educational, something that puts my frame of mind into something. I'm controlling the intake.
That's great.
And then I meditate. and I meditate before I do anything else.
Clear your
And then I try and exercise, whether it's, and understand this is like a,
Of course.
ebbs and flows.
Like life, yeah. Exactly.
But I try and do it every day. And meditation, I do 5 out of 6 or 5 out of 7 days every week. But most weeks I do 7 days.
That's great.
So meditation's not something I miss much.
Yeah, that's
it grounds me.
Well, I've always known too that you were early on. You went to a lot of coaching, and I actually, in all the years I've known you, and you've been in real estate now 20 years. I'm sorry. You've always had coaching. You've always maintained, learning, going to seminars. Dan, you're a top producer. You're already, at the top of the charts. Why are you still doing that?
Oh my God. I mean, you have to stay on top of it.
Yeah.
Things change constantly, and you have to stay on top of, you have to keep perfecting your craft. I mean, how boring is it if you just think you've got all the answers? Real estate's changing all the time. Yeah. The approach to clients is changing all the time. So in my opinion, a good coach, a good professional coach, helps keep me accountable to myself and helps keep me motivated to keep showing up, keep staying positive, to direct me in the right direction. And when I start to go south a little bit, because I do, they're like, Dan, hello, drift, right? You think about it, this is my best analogy for this, is that, if you think about a plane is off course 90+% of the time.
Yeah.
90+%.
I don't fly, so I didn't know that.
But there's a computer keeping it on track, right? So the bottom line is that if you start to drift and you don't have someone like a professional coach, colleagues that you have professional relationships with that know you, if you don't have somebody to kind of say, hey, you're drifting, before you know it, you can be way off.
Yeah. And that takes...
Everything goes south. Yeah. Right? Your life, your spirituality, your work, everything.
Everything falls apart. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a great answer. I love that. So I've also known you to have, like I said earlier, assistants, but now you've grown into a bigger team. And I haven't talked to anyone about teams yet because most have been individual agents, which is fun. You worked on your own for a number of years with an assistant. How is it different working with a team, and what are the benefits to you for that?
Well, just to touch on the assistant piece too.
Sure.
I got an assistant early on because I knew that I'm just really terrible at certain things.
Good point.
And it wasn't what I wanted to do, and I wasn't good at it. And when I did it, I just put me in a bad frame of mind. And so in the beginning, I actually shared an assistant with a colleague in my office so that the two of us we spent 50-50 on it. So for me, even before I could really afford a full-time assistant, I knew that I needed that piece. I need that piece to free me up because I know that if I'm sitting in an office in front of a computer, I am not going to make a paycheck.
Right.
If I'm in front of a client, if I'm having coffee, if I'm in a park, I have a chance of making a sale. But I don't have a chance of making a sale in a real estate office with a bunch of realtors.
That's right.
I do have a chance of learning the business, though. So there is a bonus for that. As far as a team goes, for me in the beginning, it was about adding one person onto the team because balance in life to me is really important. So part of the structure I put into place in the very beginning was days off. So the first thing I put into place was 1 day off because I have to have a day to plug in and regenerate. And I told my clients that, and I never had pushback. In fact, clients would always say to me when they called me on my day off, if I answered, because sometimes you would, they'd say something like, I know it's your day off, but I was just going to leave you a voicemail. I wasn't expecting you to answer. So people respect your boundaries if you set them.
Right.
But you have to set them and you have to be clear with them. I added and layered in a team member because I was so busy that I needed somebody to help with the workload and allow me to have more life, have more of my life. And that is the reason that I hired an assistant too, full time, is so that I could have more of my life and not do the things that I didn't want to do.
Right.
So
like making keys or,
making keys, scheduling appointments, going to things that I didn't.
Takes a lot of time to do, and it's best to have someone to support you. And so how many members are on your team now?
Right now I have 3 agents on my team plus myself, and then I have an operations manager, is my husband, and I have a administrative assistant, executive assistant.
Wow, that's really grown. That's wonderful. Congratulations. So what do these other agents do? Do you give them business? Do they find their own business? How does that, what kind of division of roles do you have with them?
So I don't give people business, and I have a kind of a, I don't give people business because I don't think you need to learn how to hunt. You need to learn how to get out there and make your own business. I do offload some of my overflow as needed, but my team makes their own sales. They create their own business, and I support them in that. So I do a lot of training with them. We do weekly meetings where we sit down. Like yesterday, we talked all about NAR's clear cooperation announcement. So we'll sit down and talk about topical things going on in the real estate industry. I'm having a deja vu. We'll talk about topical things going on in the real estate industry. We'll talk about sales training. We role play. So we do a lot of sort of coaching for them. But I'm also really selective of who I put on my team. I want somebody that has a relational approach to real estate, that really wants to build long-term relationships with their client base, because that's the way my business is built. And as time goes on, yes, they co-partner on certain listings with mine, but I would never define it as me giving them business. They bring in their own.
Yeah, it's interesting because so many people, when they're new, they want to get on a team to get business.
They think that's what happens.
They think that's what happens. And I suppose there are some teams where people give, but everyone's working very hard and doesn't really, I can tell by your face.
So here's the reality of this.
Right.
I mean, would you give away a deal?
Right.
You're gonna give away a deal because it's particularly complicated, or maybe not the right fit, or maybe it's a colder lead. Like if you pull in leads from some cold source and you need a team to hand them to, but you're still the team member that's converting the business.
That's right.
So in my experience, I've never seen a free ride in real estate, but I have seen a lot of realtors that point at certain other agents and refer to them as getting a free ride for any number of reasons.
Right. It's just all fallacy.
It's just not the way it works.
Yeah, we know that
you have to go out and work.
It always goes back to the, the TV reality shows that we know that's.
If only my life consisted of that. I mean, my life is usually eating a granola bar. Not usually, but often eating a granola bar for lunch in between.
Yeah. No, it's a full-time, work. There's no part-time. People get into it also because they think, wow, I can just, work whenever I want, which is not accurate if you want to make a living and be here in 5 years. So
they also think that this is the business piece of it, and I think it's really important, and I think it's overlooked a lot in the beginning stages of real estate, is you have to look at this as a business. Yes, if you make $1 million sale, maybe you make 25 or 30,000 gross on that.
It's the gross.
But you also have to pay real estate fees and association fees and insurance and marketing costs and brokerage fees and gas and insurance
taxes
in your car, and there's so many different taxes. There's so many things that you have to pay out of that while it seems quite large, we are compensated very well. So I'm not trying to imply that we're not, but I think in the beginning agents have this rose-colored glasses image of it because they get this big check. But the reality is that if you're running it like a business, you take that check, you say, here's taxes, here's advertising, here are the things, these are the pieces, right?
All the things you have to pay, your expenses. And that's true. That's why I say you need to run your real estate career as a business. It's not a hobby. It's a full-time business. And if you don't have any business acumen, then you need to get some. Yeah. I mean, you were very fortunate coming in, having so much, and that really did probably catapult you so quickly. That may be one of the key factors because you always treated it as a business.
And I can tell you, it never felt like it was a catapult quickly.
Yeah. Well, that's always a good question.
Moment, it felt like, because here's the reality in real estate is you can look around and feel like you're behind everybody else.
Yeah.
So comparison in real estate is the kiss of death. you really have to compare yourself to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
What am I capable of? What are my goals?
Yeah.
What am I striving towards?
Right.
And not pay attention to all the other noise.
Right.
Because you can go into an office meeting and
nice.
hear all these sales that other people are making in a week and really start to feel down on yourself. But it's not, you have to go back to you and your core. And real estate is very, very challenging from that perspective because it is sales and there is a competitive nature. And you know, I mean, I lost a listing last week and I don't lose listings very much. And when it still hurts when you do. You're like, oh.
Totally. It
You
never
know?
goes away.
It never goes
What
away.
did I do wrong? Why didn't they pick me?
You're like, what did I do? Well, and I asked and they told me.
They told you, yeah.
But what they told me isn't really why they didn't pick me.
Oh.
The reason they didn't pick me is because of errors that I made. But I own those errors,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They don't even know the errors occurred.
Right. It's
If that makes
interesting,
sense.
Because because we replay it
know.
over and over in our head.
Yeah.
The presentation, it's why I always say, you need to rehearse your presentations. You need to know your script. It's acting, in a way, you need to know your lines, right? You need to be prepared for the business that you're in. And you are, we're dealing in multi-million-dollar properties very often.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about marketing because do you do a lot of marketing for yourself? I know that early on you were by referral only. And I remember, I can tell a little story, when you came in my office one year with our annual review and you were like, Dan, you're doing so great. You're already, making, a lot of money. You were selling probably $25 million worth of real estate that year. And you were like, but I want to get to 50. And I said, well, what do? I always tell this story. I love this story. And you said, well, I work by referral only. And I said, what else? And you said, well, that's it. And I was like, well, wait, there's a lot more room. So tell me now how that's changed for you or not.
So it's interesting, like, yeah, I remember that meeting.
I do too.
I do remember that meeting. And what you taught me in that meeting, what I walked away with, which is that, sure, people that know me, when someone is looking to buy and sell real estate, or if they're looking to buy and sell real estate, maybe they're going to refer me. Right? I hope they will.
Yeah.
But what about the huge segment of the population that may not know someone that knows me?
That's
right. And so I've done a variety of different things. I've done a geographic farm.
Nice.
And geographic farms work really, really well. But what I've found is that you really need to budget aside 1 year. Right. You have to put the money aside for 1 year and say, I don't expect to get a single sale in that 1 year.
Consistent.
And you have to be consistent in your messaging. Like when you got to put things out there every single month, kind of with the mentality, it's sort of an expensive branding message, right? Which is, oh, Dan Dodd. Oh, God, this Dan Dodd. And you're hitting it when your postcard hits the mail and somebody calls you and says, get off my mailing list, take my name off, because it's received, it's in their homes. Yeah. That doesn't happen very much.
No.
But when it does, you delete the name from your list and you keep going. But all of a sudden it turns into this, oh, you're Dan, the real estate man in my neighborhood. So my focus was really to focus on where I spent my life. Yeah. So I was, in my neighborhood, I'm like, this is going to be my direct mail farm. And so I put my direct mail farm there. I did advertising in the local newsletter, which I still do today. I did advertising in the local Safeway, which I still do today, which is...
I know I go in there and I love seeing sometimes I just take a picture and text you.
People do that
so much fun.
The time.
Yeah, and it just makes you feel good that people are, they know that you're in real estate.
That's right.
We have an old saying in real estate, shy salespeople have skinny kids. Your dad probably knew that one. It's an old one.
Yeah. But it's true. It's like being the secret agent is not the way you get success in real estate.
Right.
But the other thing that I learned is that there is an element of, there is an importance in letting people know in your sphere of influence that you want to be the agent that they refer you to, or that the agent that they refer to, or that the agent if they need help. Because sometimes people get this impression that you're too big or too busy or too successful, and I'm just not important enough.
Bigger?
And you need to make sure that you're hitting all of those avenues. So it's sort of like when we say you're listing a property, you cast a really big net. As an agent, you want to cast a really big advertising net.
Right.
Because the more you advertise, the more people know to call you. And once you get the shot, then it's up to you. Then the preparation comes into play. So I've done direct mail. I do direct mail. I do branding messages like the Safeway message and the newsletters and the local newsletters. And then I do a lot of community events.
Yeah, you're very big on giving back, and so you're involved in the community, and that has, you do it, I think, out of the kindness of your heart and the desire to give back honestly and genuinely, but does it convert to business for you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And so wherever you are in the world, wherever you're presenting yourself, your authentic self of who you are, you're going to meet people, and some of them are going to know, like, and trust you. And when it comes time for real estate, they're going to know, like, and trust you and want to work with you. So I don't do any of the charity stuff that I've done has never been for business, but business is always coming in one way or another from it.
Yeah.
I think it's important, too, to mention that I'm no longer on the board of the AIDS Memorial. I was on the board for a while, and I stepped down from the board just because it was too much. I had too much going on at the time, and so I couldn't stay on there, but it's a great organization. But I think that it's important when you tie in your community events, too, to who you are. It's got to be something that's
genuine.
Authentic.
Right, exactly.
And that's what I've tried to do. And it also ties into where I live. So it all kind of comes together. And it's it's like a basket, right? You see the for sale sign and you see Dan's name. You go to Safeway, you see Dan's name. You get a postcard in the mail and you see Dan's name. And over the course of 6 months to a year, there's this perception, I have no idea who this guy is, but I have to sell a house. Oh, Dan Dodd, I should give that guy a call.
Right.
Because you've seen it multiple
interview
times.
him and find out. Yeah. And when you know what you're doing, people are going to respect that and they're going to hire you.
I like to think.
Yeah, I know so. So tell me, do you do social media? Are you using technology these days?
Yeah, I've been using social media quite a bit. I try and stay off of it myself. So that's one of the areas I try and get my assistant to post for me, but we talk about what he's going to post. The reason is because it's a time suck. It can suck me in. Like if I just open it, I see something, I'm like, oh, and then 20 minutes later.
Half hour gone for sure. Easy to do.
Yeah, but what we're doing a lot of now is video. And what we're finding that people are most responding to is not so much real estate.
Right.
It's who are you? What are you doing in the world today? What's going on? So there's a lot of video. I did a video on Broker Tour the other day as I was driving, saying,
Nice.
as I'm sweating and breathing deep,
it was
going
like
up a
100
hill.
degrees the
It's
other day.
so hot.
True.
It's not as glamorous as you
I
think.
know. So I don't know how we're doing on time, but I could talk to you for 2 hours. I know that. So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. So I'm curious, like, what would be your best advice to? I know we've already covered the whole showing up. So if you let me maybe rephrase. If you were starting over, is there anything you would do differently?
If I was starting over, much of what I've talked about today, I would implement. Like while I ran it like a business, I didn't think about the money like a business. Like when I got a check, I didn't.
Right.
It wasn't
Early on.
structured about where does it go, right? So for me, I did a lot of open houses in the beginning, every weekend, and I looked for mentors that I could mirror, agents that I could see, that I saw getting results that I wanted, and then I tried to either spend time just mentoring with them, like whenever I could be the fly on the wall. I think the key in real estate is being willing in the beginning, if it were me, to do it all over again. And I think I did this, is to be willing to do the grunt work and not have an expectation of something in return, to be able to be in the presence of somebody who's getting a result that you're looking for. So if you look to an agent and you go, I want to be like that, I want to have that level of success, I want to work in that marketplace, you look at that, try and get time around that person. And that may mean that you're sitting there open houses, or you're going down to, pick up signage for them because they need it for their property. But it gives you the opportunity to be the fly on the wall and hear real life real estate happening. Because it's not what they're going to teach you in school.
Right.
Real life real estate is this.
Yeah.
It's conversational. It's sitting across the table from somebody talking about selling, listing, or buying their most expensive asset in most cases. And
It's true.
that requires a conversation. It's not something out of a textbook. So hearing it happen in the real world is valuable.
It's true.
So hard in real estate.
Well, being around other agents, I think, is key.
It's key.
And just picking up a phone these days. No, people, I mean, everybody wants to text, and you don't know, did I offend them? Did they say it right? Did I say it? Should I ask another question? Can I ask? It's so, I find it annoying because every time I break through and I push myself, pick up the phone, which is the old-fashioned way, because I like old-fashioned ways, suddenly I have these blossoming conversations with another agent on the other side. I get 10 times more information out of them about the listing that I didn't know. I wouldn't, if I asked 2 questions in a text, they're not going deeper into why hasn't it sold, or why is it a good buy, or what is it that I need to know about this property. So picking up a phone, a very simple, I hope you're still using your phone.
It's relationships, right?
Yeah, it's all about
I mean, I was sitting with a new agent day before yesterday, and we're looking at comparable sales for a listing. He got his first referral in his first 6 months.
Nice.
And it's a listing referral. And we did the first appointment, and then we were pulling together the presentation. We're looking at comps, and we're talking about it. And as we're talking about it, there's a sale pending right around the corner. And so I just called the agent right in the middle of our conversation right there,
Just
who
pick up the
answered the phone, said, "Hey, Dan." And I said, "Hey, what's going on?" I will leave the name out. And we had a conversation about, I said, "Can you tell me how you did on this property?" Not only did she tell me how she did, she told me how many offers that they were competing, how the competition played out, and where they're going to sell.
Yeah.
And so I have that information before I go meet with this client, and it's not in the
It's
system.
valuable.
So your relationships are built the way any relationship is built. So yeah, I use my phone all the time.
Yeah.
And
Excellent.
I always sort of scratch my head when somebody says, "I prefer you communicate with me in text," because this is a people business.
Right.
And it works for people, and that's fine. But for me,
Yeah.
I find that it's better to, belly up to one another and just have a conversation.
I agree with you 100%, and I think it makes anyone a better agent. I really do, because you just don't get the same information on a text. And it's fine for, can I show the property at 4 o'clock? Yes or no answers, but not to get some insight before a listing appointment, like you just spelled out for us brilliantly, that you want to be able to know, to tell the seller, you're the producer that actually knows some inside information, and it comes from our relationships.
It does, and
It's all about
it's intonation, it's tone of voice, it's all of the stuff that we are animals, right? We pick up different things when we're talking to one another.
Everything.
It's all gone in a text. And so how many times, I don't know if this happens to you, but there's been so many times where I go to sleep wondering what the intention of a text somebody had sent me was. Were they angry? Did I make them upset about something?
What did I say
And
wrong?
they were fine.
I know.
Because the intonation, the tone of voice, the conversation didn't occur. So I didn't have that comfort to know, the context of what
I think that's a universal feeling we all are having with the text messages.
Yeah.
Everyone questions and second doubt. I mean, we all have the doubting mind anyway.
We just don't.
We know about that. So, pardon me?
We just need to all have a group.
A group hug would be nice, wouldn't it? Well, this has been wonderful. I'm going to wrap up here because I just don't want to take up too much of your time. I think we did pretty good. And I think we'll move into a separate segment after, but we'll just stop, and I'll say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being willing to take your time to share with others to learn.
Thanks, Paul.
You're such a great man. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Bye.